Good morning. Some of you may recognize this morning's speaker from seeing her on campus getting ready to run on the track or help out in the chapel. Her accomplishments in life are many. She was one of the first female executive general managers in the Ritz-Carlton hotel industry. She has visited places like Hong Kong and Madrid. She has trained and completed innumerable triathlons, and currently she is the co-president of the Altar Guild here at Episcopal, as well as training for an Ironman, which, if you didn't know, is a 2.4-mile swim, a 112-mile bike ride, and ends with a marathon of 26.2 miles. And she also raises money for the Center of Brain Injury and Repair at the University of Pennsylvania, and still somehow finds time to make my sister and I dinner. But what you can't see is her truly amazing story, which she's going to tell you about today. Although I have told and have heard this story numerous times, I'm excited to hear about what she has to say today. But first, we're going to watch this brief video about her story.
I swim 3 days a week for an hour, and I bike 4 days a week for an hour or two, mostly 2, and then I run 4 days a week for an hour, sometimes 2. In July of 2005, I was out biking. We were on Goshen Road in Chester County, and I was coming up over an overpass, and a truck was coming up behind me, pulling a trailer, and the truck went wide to pass me, and as soon as he did, there was a car coming up the other side, so the truck pulled over, and his trailer fishtailed as it came and hit my bike and me on it. It was pushed off the road and ran right into a telephone pole and unclipped out of my bike pedals and hit a fence, so I tumbled into a fence, and because of that impact, it knocked me back onto the road. So it was like a ping pong as I was being tossed around. I'd crushed all the facial bones, so they knew immediately that it was a head injury. So they were prepared when I arrived. They were prepared before I arrived.
She was about as sick as you can get with this injury. Initially, when she came to us, she was not awake, she wasn't moving, she wasn't opening her eyes.
It was a very tricky circumstance at the time. She had significant brain swelling, she had substantial brain injury, and it was touch and go for a while.
So this is the CAT scan, Candace, from the day of your accident, about an hour and a half after your accident. And it was done in the emergency room as one of the initial evaluations. So if we go up a little bit higher, what you can see is there's these white areas here which are contusions. With those kinds of injuries, in somebody her age, there's usually about a 30% mortality. If you think of the brain floating in fluid, right, which, the skull stops and the brain keeps going. So it's called a contre-coup injury.
It was a watchful waiting that it would be assessed later on and throughout the night, and I was admitted to ICU. And about 10 o'clock at night, then my brain started to swell and emergency craniotomy was necessary.
Basically taking off half of the skull on one side. And then opening the dura, which is the covering over the brain, so that the brain can swell. Instead of pushing inwards, it swells outwards and takes the pressure off the brainstem.
Initially, I would say I was sort of traumatized, for I'd say for the first 3 or 4 days after her accident, I was candidly in a little bit of a fog.
There's a high probability she'd survive, and she would have language function and move her arms and legs, but I just didn't know what her cognitive function would be like, and that would take months and months to sort that out.
There is so much about healing that we don't understand yet, about healing the brain. We used to tell her, you can do this, Candace, you can do this. We would open her eyes and we would show her the picture of the girls and have her track that picture or to even see if she was in there, if she could track it. And we would tell her, Mom, it's time to wake up, it's time to wake up. And in that way, try to make some kind of contact with her, even on a subconscious level.
I was 4 when my mom had an accident. And I remember her going for a long time and wondering when she was going to come back. I just thought it was like a dream or something. I didn't really realize it until after the fact and after when she was recovering.
I thought she'd be better within a week. I didn't understand that it would be months or years before she was well enough to do some of the things that my mom would normally do.
You're so driven as a mom to taking care of your children that is a turning point, that you have to get better. You did a nice job.
That looks pretty good, girls.
I think that it wasn't my time, that it was an opportunity for me. It was a gift to me, having all of these events align themselves so that I could recover.
I believe one of the main things was that, first of all, she was in very good physical condition before the accident from being an athlete, biking, running, swimming all the time, so I'm sure that helped. But also I think, first of all, her faith. She has always had a very strong faith, and I think that really kept her going throughout all the difficult times.
We just don't know why she would recover so much better than perhaps somebody else would, with a very similar appearing injury on both imaging and neurological diagnosis.
That's still something that's on my mind all the time, and she knows that, but that's what she loves to do, and that's her vice, and I try to accommodate that as much as possible.
I was coaxing him into agreeing and supporting me doing this next Ironman, and so I said it to him that athletes have longer longevity, happy life, and he wrote back, he said, yes, it'll lengthen your life and shorten mine.
She's not typical. She would be more on the unusual side, unusual in the degree of recovery she's experienced.
What is it about that physiology of a very fit person that can make a better environment for recovery from traumatic brain injury?
With this device, we're able to deliver low strain, such as a mild concussion, or high strain, such as a severe injury, and then take a look at what happens to the cytoskeleton. And right now we're really interested in what happens to the microtubules that make up the backbone of the axon.
The brain is probably the least resilient organ we have, and that's because neurons don't duplicate normally. If a neuron dies, or if these nerve fibers disconnect, they're gone forever.
So that's a psychosocial component, but we wonder whether or not there's also a cellular component. Maybe there's some kind of an optimal health of a cell in an organism or a person who is a great athlete that actually contributes to their better prognosis after severe traumatic brain injury.
There is no current treatment for traumatic brain injury. And when I say treatment, I mean a drug that I think should be given to anybody, even with concussion, which is called mild traumatic brain injury, all the way to severe. We need to do more. And so she's there, she's got a smile on her face, she's a very positive person, she really wants to help.
Because she's so involved, she can actually, from a patient's perspective, direct the future of research, and that's quite a thing to be able to do.
Any small thing that we can do to advance the practice of brain injury repair and understanding a little bit more about traumatic brain injury and recovery from traumatic brain injury, we'd love to support, and that's what we're trying to do now.
It's really a debt that we cannot repay. They saved my mother's life.
It's one of the things about this job that is so enormously rewarding, to be able to give somebody back their life again. I mean, there are not too many jobs like that. So I consider myself extremely lucky to be in the position I'm in. So any gratitude she has, I have 10 times more to be able to do what I can do.
to you. Thank you so much. Oh, what a blessing you are to me.
I love seeing her. I love seeing her. Yeah. Yeah, it's great.
I feel lucky that she's still alive. Thank you so much, because she was in a bed, but now she's doing so much, and it was all because of you.
I'm honored to be part of someone's hope. Good morning. Please be seated. Thank you to the vestry and to Reverend Squire for asking me to be here today. It's a really special moment for me to be here, and I appreciate that. And on Carter's advice, I will keep my comments short so you can thank her later. The story of my recovery from my accident is a powerful one, as it speaks directly to this year's theme. With God, all things are possible. My faith and trust in God has sustained me for years, especially in 2005. I know, looking back on that horrific accident, that there were God's fingerprints all over it. These are a few of the stories that I was told during my accident. What's truly remarkable is how God used me to encourage others and their faith journey. One of my dearest friends, Susan Havens, who is a religion teacher at a high school, a Catholic high school in New Jersey, she was on a camping trip with 3 of her daughters, Brooke, Felicia, and Erica. They're also allowed to bring their friends, so they brought her friends with them, and Felicia's friend Sarah was there, as well as many other of their schoolmates. Susan's husband called her to relay the message that I was in a bike accident and that I probably wouldn't survive the night. That moment, Susan stopped with her 20 camping students and prayed. Felicia's best friend, Sarah, was with them. She's a declared atheist, as well as her parents. She closed her eyes and joined in as well. Sarah heard about my surgeries through Felicia, who came with her mom, they were in the pictures today, to visit me in trauma and ICU, and also at Bryn Mawr Rehab. When school started the following year, Sarah and Felicia had Susan as their religion teacher. Susan's theme for that first semester was miracles, specifically modern-day miracles. So her first question of the day to the students was, who believes in miracles? The first person to raise her hand was Sarah. I saw a miracle. And then she recounted my story and my recovery to the rest of the class. Susan told how God had saved me and led me back to my family. Deb Woodworth is another close friend of mine. Our children were in preschool together. She was driving on Goshen Road with her son Reed. Deb and her family do not attend church or have a strong faith. Deb happened to be driving by all the police cars, the ambulance, the helicopters on Goshen Road. And she pulled over with Reed in the car and said, we have to pray right now. I don't know what happened, but that poor person in the accident needs our prayers. She had no idea it was me until she got a phone call that evening. My running club, I belong to the Fast Tracks Running Club in Valley Forge. They started track at Conestoga High School, which is our normal routine on Wednesday nights, but they started our track workout that night with a prayer. All 30 of my fellow Fast Tracks members prayed for me. And finally, during my long recovery, my husband met my Bible study teacher and her husband. They came to ICU to comfort Russ, and they gave him a Bible with a page marked to Jeremiah 33:3, which says, "Call upon me, and I will show you great and mighty things thou knowest not." He clings to that still this day. The prayer helped him through all the days of my recovery and 2 subsequent surgeries because they needed to put the skull plate back in. And he leans on it even today. Reverend Squire was there too, and this community lifted me up in prayer for months. I strongly believe that my faith and the faith of others prayed me back to health. Thank you.
Thank you. I also want to recognize someone else, Courtney Brinkerhoff-Rao, who actually produced this video, as well as last year, that wonderful chapel video that we all got a chance to see. Courtney, would you stand, please?